Thank you for your patience. Earlier today, we had a caucus meeting in connection with the 117th Congress, and then continued to organize as we prepare for the 118th Congress. As it relates to our current congressional business, we were able to hear from both Chairman Jim Himes, whose committee did phenomenal work to address the economic disparities that the American people confront, as well as Chairwoman Kathy Castor of the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, whose committee contributed so much to the work that we were able to do in this Congress to decisively confront the climate crisis, particularly as it relates to what was done in the Inflation Reduction Act. The work of both Kathy Castor and her committee and Jim Himes and his committee is consistent with what House Democrats are all about. From the very beginning, we have been determined in this Congress to get big things done for everyday Americans, to fight for lower costs, better paying jobs, and safer communities. And that is actually what we have done in this Congress, laying a strong foundation to build upon the work that needs to be done in the future, where we will continue to fight to make life better for everyday Americans. Fundamentally, that is what is at our core. It's what's in our DNA. It's what drives us. We want to make life better for everyday Americans all across the land. In urban America, rural America, suburban America, ex-urban America, the heartland of America, small town America, and Appalachia. That's what has driven our work in this Congress, and that is what will continue to drive our work as we move forward. I yield to our incoming Democratic Whip, Katherine Clark.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leader, and good afternoon. As a former caucus vice chair, I congratulate and welcome our incoming vice chair, Congressman Ted Lieu. We are just thrilled and have an incredible team in Chair Aguilar and in Vice Chair Lieu. And today, Democrats are celebrating on two fronts. This morning, we received welcome economic news from the November Consumer Price Index report. Inflation is coming down. In fact, it has fallen for 5 straight months and is at its lowest level in nearly a year. What's more, gas prices are down, unemployment is down, the GDP is up, and jobs are up, including a total of 10.5 million jobs created under the leadership of President Biden. And this afternoon, President Biden will sign the Respect for Marriage Act, a major civil rights achievement in our march towards LGBTQ plus equality. These twin achievements are the pillars of the Democratic agenda: building an economy that works for working families and building a future where every American has the same access to justice and opportunity. The Republicans, however, remain uninterested in supporting the progress and prosperity of the American people. They voted against the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act, the laws that paved the way for our economic recovery and revitalization. And just last week, 169 House Republicans voted against protecting interracial and same-sex marriage. While they say no to opportunity and equality, Democrats will never walk away from our commitment to the American people. And with that, I'm proud to yield to Caucus Chair-elect Pete Aguilar.
Thank you, Whip-elect Clark. It's just a collection of vice chairs up here, past and present, the ghost of vice chairs past. We had a productive caucus meeting today. House Democrats are still concerned that a Republican-led shutdown will severely impact the VA and our veterans, but we have full faith in Chairwoman DeLauro, to deliver an omnibus that protects both our veterans and our priorities within this Congress. Democrats are united while Kevin McCarthy is making deals behind closed doors to flip Republicans to help him become Speaker. He's assured prime committee spots for a member of Congress with a history of anti-Semitic statements. This same member said over the weekend that if she had organized January 6th on the Capitol, we would have won. He's promised that they will begin every day with a pledge and a prayer, which we already do. He's going to investigate the January 6th Select Committee, citing conspiracy theories about the attack that day. And after failing to comply with the lawfully issued subpoena from that same committee, he's made promises to his MAGA-hungry extremists that they will issue their own subpoenas. He's flip-flopped on impeachment investigations, and he's promised to repeal new IRS agents, a talking point that was debunked by the Washington Post, USA Today, New York Times, and Reuters, among others. And most importantly, he's committed to use the debt ceiling as a bargaining chip to enact cuts to Social Security and Medicare. It should be noted that none of this is going to help lower the costs of everyday Americans. Nothing that the House GOP is prioritizing is going to create good-paying jobs. While they fight amongst themselves, House Democrats will continue to put the American people first. And with that, our newest addition, the incoming vice chair of the caucus, a colleague from Southern California, a veteran and a friend, Ted Lieu.
Good afternoon. I'm so thrilled to be here with Hakeem Jeffries, Katherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar, and we look forward to making sure that we continue to move American families forward, and we stand ready to work with Republicans in the House. And I hope that Republicans learn their lessons from this midterm where Democrats way overperformed. We did better in recent memory than most administrations have for the party holding the White House in power. Not only did we almost hold the House, we expanded the Senate. And we hope Republicans will work with us to put people over politics and focus on better paying jobs, lower costs, and safer communities. Unfortunately, the GOP leader has not been sending those signals. So recently, he put out a statement on social media saying what he's going to focus on is Hunter Biden's laptop. Actually, it's even more irrelevant than that. He's actually concerned about what Twitter was saying about Hunter Biden's laptop. So how does that move the American family forward? It doesn't. He also went on media and talked about how he wants to kick off members like Adam Schiff from the Intelligence Committee. So a focus on revenge, a focus on irrelevant committees, and a focus on irrelevant investigations does not help the American family. And so we urge that he doesn't go down these stupid, dark paths and work with Democrats as we continue to build upon the prosperity that we've had in these last 2 years. So again, I'm thrilled to be here with Hakeem, Katherine, and Pete, and I have much to learn from two of the former vice chairs. Thank you.
Feeling left out is not being a former vice chair myself. Questions? Yeah, to the extent that the Republicans are successful in organizing on January 3rd, I look forward to having conversations with the new Republican leadership. Okay, we're going to go back and forth here.
And I know that you have been reluctant to comment on international affairs, but now you're elected as Democratic leader. The first reaction to protest in Iran, the wave of execution that is happening. The Iranian regime executed the second protest yesterday. Activists are worried about another wave of execution. New York Times said more than 3 minors during the protest. Do you and the Democratic Party support the idea of sanctioning those who are repressing the Iranian people and breaking any international laws and norms to repress their own people?
Well, thank you for that question. First of all, I would respectfully disagree with the assessment that I've been reluctant to comment on international affairs. I have one of the most diverse districts in the country. In fact, about 33% of the people I represent came from other parts of the world. We deal with international affairs every day on the ground in the community back at home. With respect to your question, I would just suggest my own personal position is that we should find ways to stand with the Iranian people in their efforts at self-determination, respect human rights, and the fight for decency and freedom and liberty that is underway, and push back against the totalitarian regime in the strongest way possible. But it is within the domain of President Biden and the Biden administration to ultimately make that determination at this moment, in my view.
Would Democrats consider voting in favor of a moderate Republican for Speaker of the House if McCarthy fails to get enough votes, and especially taking into account some of the deal making that Congressman Aguilar was talking about?
I'm trying to get every vote that I possibly can right now on January 3rd and expect that Democrats will come together in that regard. Certainly, that is my hope. We have to organize on the Democratic side. They have to organize on the Republican side. Let's see what happens on January 3rd.
Tomorrow is the 10-year anniversary of the shooting at Caucus, and in the 10 years since then, gun-related deaths for kids have risen 80%. Is there any feasible action? And I recognize the Republican versus Democratic side. Is there any feasible action that you think Americans can see Congress undertake in the next Congress?
Well, thank you for that question. And it is still a tragedy that scars all of us, what happened in Sandy Hook, and should continue to inspire all of us to deal with the tremendous challenge of gun violence that we're confronting in this country. And I want to yield to all of my colleagues to speak on this issue. They've all been leaders in the effort to deal with gun safety legislation here in America. It is important to note that we just passed historic gun safety legislation for the first time in 30 years that will save lives and includes some meaningful provisions to address the gun violence epidemic that we have in America that hopefully we'll be able to build upon in the next Congress and moving forward. America has 4% of the world's population, but 40% or more of the world's guns. That means there are somewhere around 400 million guns circulating throughout America, many of which are weapons of mass destruction, not used to hunt deer, but used to hunt children and families and others, and to shred them beyond recognition. And that should encourage all of us to do more as we move forward in the next Congress. And I'm certainly hopeful that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle will see fit to lean in further on gun safety. Yeah.
This has been an issue that Democrats care so deeply about, and there are so many issues we talk about dividing our country. This actually is not one of them. This is an issue where it is not just Democratic families that fear for their children, whether that's in a place of worship or sending them to a school. It is about being in a movie theater. All of these places should be free of gun violence. And what happened at Sandy Hook was unthinkable. And really, it was hard to even to fathom when that information was coming in. And what we have seen since at Parkland, at Uvalde, it is heartbreaking that when we had the first bipartisan coming out of the Senate bill before the House in June that could move us forward on some common sense solutions to reduce gun violence in this country, that we weren't able to garner a Republican vote in the House. And so this is an issue that Democrats are going to continue to push because it is one of great concern. We cannot build safer communities until we address the statistic that the chairman just gave. We have to do a better job. We owe the American people that, and we are going to be looking to the GOP to put the American people, the American family, our children first again, and not the special interests that are pushing them to extreme positions on this issue.
Whip Clark was one of the leaders on the House Democratic side when it was a sit-in to talk about these very issues with John Lewis and others. All of us remember where we were 10 years ago. I was waiting outside the White House to go into a holiday party, the same one that President Obama got emotional at. And as someone who has kids in that age, it was deeply emotional for all of us. We view it, all of us up here view it through the prism of our own kids. The lockdown drills they have to take now, how their upbringing in school is different than ours as a result of gun violence. It's affected all of us in very personal ways. My district, there was a shooting 11 months after I was sworn in here in 2015, a mass shooting in San Bernardino. Was coming off of the House floor, and a colleague said, "Have you seen what's on TV? You know, you gotta go back, run back to your office." And that's what we experience. That's our experience. But as Katherine said, as Leader Jeffries said, you know, we are focused on enacting good policy for the American public. And so we hope that our colleagues continue to reach out. We hope that the anniversary of Sandy Hook means something. We hope that they will continue to reach out and support good, reasonable gun violence safety legislation like we passed earlier this year. That was a meaningful step, the most meaningful step we've taken in 30 years, but it's not enough. We know that we can do more, and we hope to do that in the upcoming session.
I have 2 marksmanship awards from the United States military, so I'm not opposed to people having guns. I am opposed to people having guns who shouldn't have them. That's why I support universal background checks, and why every Democrat in the House supports universal background checks. And it's extremely disappointing that we can't get that into law. I do hope that Republicans will work with Democrats on something as simple as universal background checks that's supported by over 85% of American people. And if we could just get that through, we're also going to save lives. I remember when Republicans controlled the House and Katherine Clark helped lead a sit-in. If she wants to do that again, I'll join her.
Ted Lieu making news at his first press conference.
Thanks for that immigration, obviously, obviously was quite imminent that there's a court ruling to protect consumers, but also wondering what those conversations are. So there's a small coalition of bipartisan efforts in the House and Senate spending Title 42. Are there just
Well, I've had a few recent conversations with the current chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Raul Ruiz, and I know the CHC is working hard on the issue to see where the opportunities to find common ground may be in the final few weeks of this 117th Congress. I'm hopeful that our friends on the other side of the aisle, on the other side of the Capitol, might see the need to begin, as the American people have demanded, to work on this issue in a responsible way that doesn't demagogue the issue like the former president did, but seeks solutions consistent with who we are as a nation of immigrants and a nation anchored in the rule of law.
What's your
Well, let's see what happens in the new Congress in terms of what they ultimately decide to do. But here's the concern, and I yield to my colleagues right after this for their observations. Democrats are going to continue to focus on kitchen table, pocketbook, bread and butter issues related to making life better economically for everyday Americans and improving their safety and security in their communities. That's our focus. It's my hope that we will not see on the Republican side of the aisle the Kevin McCarthy fire sale to the extreme MAGA Republicans as part of his effort to get to 218, along with the Marjorie Taylor Greene revenge tour. But if this weekend's events are any indication of what to expect, where Marjorie Taylor Greene seems to have an outsized platform in the Republican conference, then the American people are in for a reckless legislative joyride in the next 2 years, led by the extreme MAGA Republicans, that is sure to crash and burn. All right. Well, the leadership right now, led by our historic speaker, Nancy Pelosi, as well as Chairwoman Rosa DeLauro, have their hands on the steering wheel, and we've got great confidence in them to navigate through this issue and every other issue that is before us right now in the 117th Congress, along with the work that's being done by the Congressional Hispanic Caucus under the leadership of Raul Ruiz. And I will certainly at this moment defer to their efforts.
One more question on that. Given what we are seeing right now, the influx that has overwhelmed local authorities in El Paso, the potential end of Title 42 in this week, is the Biden administration doing enough right now? And for that matter, Democrats are about to lead the majority in the House without having taken action on larger comprehensive immigration reform. Is that a failure?
It was not a failure. We in the House of Representatives have passed several bills supported by the American people on the immigration issue, including the Dream and Promise Act, legislation also to deal with TPS recipients, and legislation that is bipartisan in nature as well to make sure we address the issues connected to farm workers in this country so that they can be treated with dignity and respect and continue to be an essential part of our ecosystem here in America. The Senate has failed to take up any of those bills because of Republican opposition, and that's problematic. Let me yield to Pete.
If Republicans were serious about these issues, they could take them up in the Senate. The Dream and Promise Act, the Farm Worker Modernization Bill, but more importantly, our funding bill. They haven't passed a single appropriations bill, and we are where we are. We're negotiating. They haven't passed a single appropriations bill, and some of those resources in the appropriations bills would go desperately to state and local governments for aid as they navigate what they are experiencing. It would also go to Customs and Border Patrol and Homeland Security. So if Republicans were serious, we would do better than a CR. We would pass a full year funding bill. But as the chairman mentioned, the policy matters for the House Democratic Caucus. If there is more than just the framework that we've seen, if there is language that we can look at and see, we are open to that. But right now, that's all we have. And so we are anchored in our support as a nation of immigrants, and anchored in the rule of law, as the incoming leader said. That is the prism by which we view this issue, but we look forward to working with our colleagues to see if there's more that we can accomplish within this legislative year.
Last question? Sorry. Last two questions. Well, we're going to continue to organize in the most responsible fashion possible. What's in front of us next are making sure that the current committee chairs are reaffirmed, those who are unopposed, in terms of continuing to be the lead Democrats moving forward on their standing committees, as well as addressing, as we will both before steering and policy, and ultimately the caucus under the leadership of Chairman Aguilar and Vice Chair Lieu, those contested committee races, including, as of the present moment, Transportation and Infrastructure and the Oversight Committee. That's what's immediately in front of us, and that's what we're going to deal with next. Last question. Yeah, and I want to yield to my colleagues on this, all of whom have worked on this issue. Katherine Clark has taken a particular lead in driving this forward in connection with her membership on the Appropriations Committee. But the child tax credit is a historic accomplishment of the Biden administration that dramatically reduced child poverty throughout America for every community, and perhaps in the most significant way in the Latino community and the African American community, and in Appalachia. That's an incredible accomplishment and something to be built upon. It's unfortunate that the extreme MAGA Republicans on the other side of the aisle would rather use the tax code to benefit the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. That's what they did when they passed the GOP tax scam, where 83% of the benefits went to the wealthiest 1%. But in connection with our effort as Democrats to stand up for low-income families, working families, and middle-class families, the extreme MAGA Republicans have a problem with the child tax credit. That's the difference between who we are as Democrats and who they are as Republicans. And it's my hope that in the next Congress, there will be an opportunity, if we're not able to deal with the issue over the next few weeks, to actually come together and support an effort within the tax code to benefit working families, low-income families, middle-class families in a way that addresses their economic concerns. Katherine.
Thank you. We halved child poverty with the child tax credit. This is the way forward for us to support families, and families are at the center of our work in Congress and for the American people. And I just want to share with you briefly two stories from constituents that I've met. One was a mover, a single dad. His wife died in childbirth, raising a toddler daughter. And he talked about the relief to him to have money to enable him to be able to buy new clothes for her for the first time as a dad. And then I met an Uber driver, a single mom, who we ended up talking a little bit about politics. And she said, if I had 5 minutes with someone powerful in Washington, I have something to say. I said, well, what would you say? And it was the child tax credit. And it was the first time she had any breathing room with the bills that she paid. It was the first time she was able to give her daughter a birthday party without fearing she wouldn't be able to make rent, wouldn't be able to feed her or get her the other things that she needs. This is how we build strong families. This is how we build strong communities. And this is how we build a strong economy. This will continue to be where we center our work as Democrats. And I hope that the Republicans will see that this investment is how we enable opportunity to grow in this country.
Thank you, everyone.